10 Sinister Summer Getaways in Appalachia. Discover the hidden horrors and haunting legends. Sarah, 36, could feel the thrill of adventure tingling in her bones as she packed the last of the bags into her minivan. She glanced at Jamie, age 10, and Lily, age 8, their faces alight with excitement for their summer road trip into the heart of Appalachia. They had heard whispers about the serene beauty and enchanting small towns that promised to give them a break from their bustling city life. But legend spoke of the hidden horrors of these lands, and little did they know what awaited them. With a gentle hum, they cruised down winding roads, surrounded by lush mountains and quaint towns with cheerful names like Happy Hollow and Sugar Creek. The atmosphere felt peaceful, almost nostalgic, a reflection of their hopes for a perfect family getaway. But as the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows over the land, the smiles on their faces began to fade. Stopping at a local diner, the scent of homemade pie wafted through the air, wrapping around them like a warm hug. Old-timers with weathered hands told tales of restless spirits and hoodoo rituals with knowing smiles. At first, they chuckled, brushing off the stories as folklore. But with each slice of pie, the tales became darker, feeding their unease. "Did you see those symbols carved on the trees?" Jamie's voice broke through the growing tension, his wide eyes reflecting curiosity but also a hint of fear. The uneasiness gnawed at Sarah. She tried to silence the warnings ringing in her head. As they ventured further into the mountains, nature turned ominous. Shadows danced beneath the thick canopy, and whispers threaded through the underbrush. It was growing late when they stumbled upon the ruins of an abandoned hospital, a place wrapped in ghostly history. Sarah felt a tug of dread, yet her curiosity was piqued. "Let's just take a quick look," she said, masking her apprehension. Inside, the atmosphere twisted into something heavy, almost suffocating. Jamie dashed ahead, entranced by the haunting echoes that sang the stories of the past. Lily clutched Sarah's hand tightly, her eyes wide with trepidation. Then, in an instant, a man stepped from the shadows, worn jeans, a faded flannel, and a smile that sent chills down Sarah's spine. "You folks looking for some adventure?" His voice was smooth, friendly, but his eyes held an intensity that made her skin crawl. "Just exploring," Sarah managed to say, feeling the need to protect her children. The man offered to show them hidden gems of Appalachia, insisting that as long as they stuck together, they'd be safe. As his words wrapped around them, she felt the fragile illusion of security shatter. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." "Now let's continue." Heart racing, Sarah turned away from him, her instincts screaming to leave. But every road they attempted to backtrack upon morphed, twisting further into the wilds where the trees thickened and the shadows deepened around them. A creeping sense of panic enveloped her. What was hidden beyond the next bend? They reached for their phones, desperate to call for help, but there was no signal. The mountains loomed around them like monstrous sentinels, impenetrable and invasive. Sarah's mind raced. What were they up against? Was it the darkness of the hills or something more sinister breathing down their necks? As the man smiled wider, something inside her cracked, echoing a horrifying thought: the real danger never left home at all, and trusting the wrong people could cost them everything. As night fell, the air thick with impending dread, Sarah clenched her children close, whispering a protective prayer into the void, while the shadows stretched and twisted around them. The unease tightened around Sarah like a noose. The heavy silence of the abandoned hospital, punctuated only by the creeping sounds of wind curling through broken windows, set her heart pounding. Jamie and Lily stayed close, their faces pale and eyes darting toward every dark corner, every shadow that flickered and danced under the ghostly light of the pale moon filtering through the gaps in the walls. "Maybe we should go back to the car," Sarah suggested, her voice barely above a whisper. But the man chuckled lightly, his grin widening, as if enjoying their palpable fear. It's much too late for that. Just wait until you see what I have to show you. Against her instincts, Sarah felt drawn to the depths of his proposition. What could possibly await them? The stray tendrils of curiosity wrestled with her gut feeling, churning her insides in a sickly dance. Come on, don't be shy. He beckoned, stepping deeper into the worn halls. The way his feet glided over the debris felt unnatural. I promise it'll be worth it. Some things are still alive in this hospital, you just need to know where to look. A chill swept through Sarah. Lily's fingers squeezed tighter around her wrist, nails digging into her skin. Jamie, however, seemed enchanted, leaning closer to the man who radiated an almost eerie allure. Mom, I want to see. Jamie's voice echoed, filled with a boldness that terrified Sarah. She pulled him back, panic surging within her. No, Jamie. We don't. But already, the man had moved away, stepping into a dimly lit room that lay shattered with old papers and forgotten medical equipment. The children hesitated, the allure of exploration battling the encroaching dread. Don't get left behind. He called, laughter threading through his words. Under the false bravado, Sarah heard something darker. It twisted in her gut, crawling into her mind. They shouldn't follow. They should turn and run. But the shadows whispered to them, pulsing with dark secrets waiting to be unearthed. Mom, let's just take a look, Jamie pleaded, eyes shining with excitement. Sarah knew they shouldn't. Yet that hidden fear inside her was juxtaposed with a voice that urged her toward adventure. She had always promised herself that their family vacations would be about exploring the unknown. With shaking breaths, they stepped into the room. Dust hung thick in the air, coating everything. An ominous chill swept around them as the man grinned wider, shadows flickering as if alive. A clang echoed from the far end of the hall. Voices, low and unintelligible, drifted through the silence, wrapping around Sarah's heart like ice. Did you hear that? She whispered, nervously glancing over her shoulder. We should. Oh, that's just the wind, or maybe the spirits, he teased, an unnerving seriousness creeping into his tone. They like to play. But they mostly just want to be seen. Sarah stood frozen, fear prickling every nerve in her body. Jamie, impatient, pushed forward, almost entranced by the man's words. And Lily, her eyes wide, started to cry softly, sensing what Sarah dared not voice. We need to go. Right now. Sarah's voice rose, determined. But in that moment, the man stepped fully into the light, and the chill of recognition slammed into Sarah. His eyes were no longer kind, they were cold, devoid of warmth. They glinted with something far more sinister. Suddenly, the walls around them seemed to close in. The laughter was no longer jovial but turned maniacal, echoing off grimy walls, amplifying the pounding of Sarah's heart. What have we stumbled into? She thought, desperately clutching the children. What fate awaits us in this forsaken place? The shadows lengthened, swallowing them whole as the man's smile split his face. Something dark lingered in his eyes, something ancient and wicked. Time to meet the past, he said, the echo stretching as if the building itself hungrily awaited their arrival. In the depths of Appalachian darkness, something breached the surface, a living nightmare ready to claim its newest victims. As the sounds of laughter faded, swallowed by the blackened walls, Sarah knew one thing for certain: they were no longer just lost in Appalachia. They were trapped in a web of horrors waiting to unfold. But what waited in the shadows? Would they escape, or would they find themselves permanently entwined in this derelict legacy? The man gestured into the dimly lit room, beckoning Sarah and the kids to follow. Tendrils of fear coiled tightly around her thoughts as Jamie bounded forward, drawn to the dark promise. Sarah's heart raced, the stale air thick with dread. Wait. Jamie. Don't. But it was too late. The allure of the unknown had gripped him. Lily hung back, her small frame shivering near the doorway, tears trickling down her cheeks. I don't want to go in there, Mom. Her plea felt like a fragile tether dragging Sarah back from the edge. "We stay together," Sarah insisted, squeezing Lily's hand tightly, urging her to follow. Yet the man's voice, smooth and hushed, coiled around them like smoke, compelling them deeper into the room's murky embrace. "Come on. Just a little further. You'll like it, I promise." Inside the room, belched up by the dark, clutter of rotting furniture loomed. Shadows elongated, creating grotesque shapes on the wall. A grotesque display of rusted gurneys and yellowed charts lined the far side. The stench of mildew mingled with something sharper, metallic. The atmosphere crackled with an electric heaviness. "What is this place?" Sarah whispered, as if saying it aloud could trigger an answer. The man laughed, the sound peeling off the walls like peeling paint. "You're about to find out," he replied. Then, behind him, a low, mournful sound slithered into their ears. A crying echoed, faint but growing in intensity, filling the room with an inexplicable sorrow. It wasn't from the man. Something else stirred within the shadows. Mom Jamie's voice faltered as he stepped backward, eyes wide. The laughter had faded into something sinister, something far more threatening. "Don't turn around," Sarah urged, though every instinct screamed to flee. But curiosity had already seeped into Jamie's mind, wound tightly around his heart. It pulled him deeper, guiding him toward the source of that chilling sound. "What's wrong?" The man drawled, his voice now a husky whisper. "Are you afraid? You shouldn't be. This place has stories to tell." "What kind of stories?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling, clutching Lily tighter as if she could ward off the darkness that suffocated them. He leaned in closer. "They say those who once walked these halls left pieces of themselves behind. If you listen close enough, you might hear them." Before Sarah could respond, a rattling sound erupted from behind them. A sharp, clattering crash resonated through the clinic's bowels. They turned, but there was nothing there, just the darkness seeping further in. "Stay close," Sarah commanded, adrenaline flooding her veins. Jamie's boldness wavered, and Lily clung desperately to her side. They needed to escape. But the walls felt like they were shifting, closing in like the jaws of a predatory beast. "Are you scared, little girl?" The man cooed, eyes narrowing, inching closer as if relishing the fear, enjoying the way it thickened the air. Let us go, please," Sarah urged, backing away from his gaze, shielding the children from him. "No. I want to hear." Jamie shouted defiantly, breaking free from Sarah's grip. He stepped toward the man's figure, drawn into the web of allure he spun around them. "Don't!" Sarah screamed, panic exploding within her. But Jamie's determination rooted him. Then, from the recesses of the shadows emerged a figure bathed in darkness, gliding with an almost effortless grace. A woman, her face obscured but radiating an aura of despair, stepped forth, nails long and sharp like the past clawing its way back. "Help us," she whispered, her voice slipping through the air like a wisp of smoke. "Please, help us." Sarah's pulse raced as a cold wave washed over her, wrapping around her chest, suffocating. This was not just fear. They were in a horror show, and the curtains had only just risen. "No. No. This can't be happening." But the man's grin only widened, eyes alight with malevolent glee. "You asked for the truth. Now, you'll learn what the past demands." Darkness pressed in, the gravity of ancient sorrow drawing them into its depths. It threatened to consume not only them but their very souls. As the woman reached out, fingers elongated, night creeping into every corner, Sarah felt hope slip away. In that moment, the weight of despair overwhelmed her, and she realized with horrific clarity, there was no escape. Only the chilling embrace of the past haunting them, desperate to be witnessed. But was there power in that utter despair? Would she dare to confront what lurked there? All thoughts fled as her surroundings began to spin, and Sarah struggled to hold on to the glimmer of courage in her heart. They were here now, and what evil was awakening in the hushed whispers of the hospital demanded not just attention, but a reckoning. In the blinding darkness, she took a step forward, hand trembling, resolve wavering. But where would it lead her? Would she become another lost soul? Or would she find the strength to confront the terror waiting in the shadows? The low moan of the past echoed in her ears, and as Sarah breathed in, the air thickened, spiraling downward into uncertainty. The darkness around them seemed to pulse, undulating like a living being. It wrapped itself around Sarah's chest, squeezing the breath from her lungs. Jamie took another step forward, eyes fixated on the woman whose face remained shrouded in shadow. "Help us," she repeated, her voice a haunting melody that curled around them, filling the air with despair. "Jamie, stop." Sarah's voice cracked, but it was as if her words were lost in the thick air like a wisp of smoke. The walls seemed to close in, and in that moment of desperation, she felt an ancient fear rise in her throat. Lily whimpered, her small body trembling against Sarah. "Mom, I want to go home." Panic surged in Sarah's chest. She had to protect her children. But how? "Stay back," the man commanded, his voice low and firm. He stepped closer to the children, his grin wide and unnerving, exposing teeth that looked sharper, more menacing as he loomed like a dark cloud over them. In that flickering half-light, the woman's face was revealed for just a moment. Hollow eyes seemed to peer into Sarah's soul, searching, pleading. "They can't leave, not until it's shared," she whispered, as if a secret had been spilled. "What does that mean?" Sarah shouted, stepping forward, heart racing, determination pushing her beyond fear. "What do you want?" The man chuckled, an ominous sound that echoed through the decaying room. "You're in the wrong place at the wrong time," he said softly, and so were they. His hand swept toward the darkness, the shadows deepening as if they were alive, hungry. An unexpected chill ran through Sarah. She could hear whispers now, incoherent but frantic. "We don't know, help us!" A chorus of voices cascaded from the corners of the room, an unsettling harmony of lost souls mixing with the woman's mournful cries. "Mom!" Jamie cried, his voice trembling. He turned as if to run, but the shadows rippled in response. Black tendrils reached out, ensnaring him, tugging at his limbs as if alive, pulling him deeper into despair. "No!" Sarah lunged forward, nearly losing her footing. She gripped Lily tightly with one hand while the other reached out for Jamie. "Hold on. Let go of him." The desperation cracked her voice. The man merely stepped aside, allowing the shadows to tighten their hold. "You will witness what lies beneath this fractured facade," he said with eerie delight. In a surge of anguish, Sarah's heart raced. She felt the air thicken as if the very walls inhaled deeply, preparing to expel a dark truth. "I'll save you, Jamie." With a primal scream, she yanked Lily closer to her, turning her back to the man and the shadows, determined to escape the room, but as Sarah pressed onward, the woman's anguished face marked her mind. "You have no idea what you unleash," she shouted. The sound of humming filled the air, a chorus of mourning giving way to a gut-wrenching wail. It reverberated off the walls, pulling at the marrow in Sarah's bones. The very foundation of the clinic seemed to shift, groaning under the burden of the past. "We can't leave," Jamie whimpered, the shadows still binding him, dragging him backward. "Mom! Hold on." Sarah wrenched herself forward, pulling on her son with all her might while her heart thundered against her ribcage. And then, in a rush, the shadows receded. The tension slackened for just a heartbeat, but the promise of doom loomed larger than ever. Out of the corner of her eye, Sarah caught a flicker, a door ajar, bathed in a dim glow. "Quick!" she yelled, turning desperately toward the opening. But as she moved, the wails intensified, rising to a crescendo as if all the forgotten souls united in their lament. "Mom, please!" Jamie's voice fractured, and Sarah felt her insides churn as dread filled her. She couldn't lose him. Not here, not now. An icy hand gripped her heart, the man's laughter echoing in her ears, taunting her as she pushed toward the flickering light. But with every step, the door seemed to recede, further from her grasp, just as shadows lunged back with renewed ferocity, scratching at her resolve. "Mom!" Jamie's scream was a heart-stopping sound that lanced through the air, and Sarah felt the ground beneath her tremble, darkness beckoning, hungry. In that moment, she realized this was more than a decision of escape. This was a reckoning. And the true horror awaited just beyond the threshold. As she prepared to fight, could she pull them back from the edge, or was it already too late? The air crackled and pulsed, the finality of dread closing in. She only had moments to decide. If they didn't act now, what kind of sacrifices would be demanded of them? Wisps of shadow danced around her legs, a threatening caress that whispered, "Embrace the past or be consumed by it." And with each heartbeat, Sarah knew they were running out of time. Would they stand together against the darkness, or would the past swallow them whole? The flickering light seemed to pulse like a heartbeat, drawing Sarah closer while the darkness clawed at her edges, pulling her further from the safety of her children. She pushed through the dread, feeling the air heavy with despair. Each step weighed her down, but the distant glow offered a sliver of hope. "Mom, please!" Jamie cried again, a sound torn between terror and desperation. It sent a shiver down Sarah's spine, igniting a fire in her chest. She couldn't let fear dominate. She had to reach him. "Lily, hold on to me!" she shouted, gripping her daughter's small hand tightly. The child trembled but nodded, eyes wide with unshed tears reflecting confusion and terror. The shadows pulsed like a living thing around them, and Sarah sensed they were alive, fueled by something far older than herself. They whispered and hissed, curling around her legs like serpents ready to strike. She pushed forward, breaking through the oppressive miasma that sought to ensnare her in its grasp. Almost there. She rasped, moving toward the door that now seemed both impossibly far away and yet tantalizingly close. Her heart thundered, a primal drum calling her to action, to save her son, to escape, but as they neared the opening, a chill swept through the hallway. The man's laugh echoed, a sharp sound that sliced through the air like a blade. "You think you can escape so easily?" he mocked, his voice slithering into her mind. "Nothing here lets go so simply. What is owed must be paid." "Shut up!" she screamed, defiance burning bright as she took another step, dragging Lily along. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices that trembled along her skin, begging, pleading for release. "Mom!" Jamie's cry was raw, laced with terror. The shadows tightened their grip, the wispy tendrils clawing at him, and she felt the tether between them straining. She couldn't lose him. Not like this. "I'm coming." With a surge of desperation, she lunged toward Jamie, only to feel a sharp tug at her ankle. Panic flooded her heart as the shadows latched onto her, refusing to let go, as if their very essence was linked to her fear. A flash of movement caught her eye. The woman's eyes peered through the dark, wide with warning. "You're losing him," she cried. "What they desire, what they crave, it's all part of the bargain. You don't know anything." Sarah shouted back, the sound of her own voice surprising her as it fought against the chaos. She turned to the woman, searching for understanding, for answers. "Do you know what will happen if you fail them?" The woman continued, her voice layered with fear, urgency crawling into each word. "They'll take what matters most, they'll slice through the bond you share. I want to let them." Sarah screamed, her resolve solidifying. She wrenched free from the shadows that gripped her with a desperation akin to a mother bear defending her cubs. "Jamie!" she shouted, stretching her arm out. "Grab my hand." As if summoned by her command, Jamie reached for her. Dark fingers fought against him, the shadows writhing with violence as they struggled to retain their hold. "Mom!" he cried, straining against the darkness. The shadows recoiled as the warmth of her love crackled through the air, slashing through despair. Sarah felt the heartbeat quicken in her chest, and as Jamie's fingers found her grasp, she twisted, pulling with all her might as the shadows howled in protest, and in that split second, clarity dawned. This was not just a rescue, but a confrontation with the unseen forces that had drawn them into this nightmare. Then she felt it, a break, a fracture, and she stumbled a step back. The woman's face morphed into a blood-curdling grin, as if aware of something Sarah couldn't yet comprehend. Too late, the door behind them cracked wide open, spilling a burning light that began to chase the shadows away. But was it freedom? Or merely a new trap waiting to be set? Go! She urged Jamie, pushing him through the light. Run! The darkness roared as if in rage, and just as suddenly, silence enveloped them. Sarah's heart raced. What lay ahead was unknown her. Past was the very thing that threatened to rip them apart. And from the depths of silence came a whisper, cold and final. You'll never escape what you carry with you. What darkness waited beyond the threshold? Would they make it out, or would the past drag them back into the maw of despair? The blinding light enveloped them, and for an instant, Sarah felt suspended between two worlds, between the horror behind her and whatever lay ahead. The warmth caressed her skin, infusing her with a sense of fleeting hope. Then, just as quickly, it faded, plunging them back into shadow. Mom. Jamie's voice trembled. It was a dim echo in the vast darkness that had swallowed them again. Sarah squeezed Lily's hand tighter. This wasn't over yet. Suddenly, a cold wind whipped around them, snatching the breath from her lungs. The air felt heavier, charged with an energy that prickled against her skin, creeping down her spine like cold fingers. Where are we? She whispered, panic seeping in. This can't be it. Don't let go. Lily cried, her little arm trembling as she clung to Sarah. Stay close. Sarah glanced around, desperate to find a point of reference. But the shadows coiled relentlessly, shifting shapes that seemed to leer at them from every angle. The room felt too vast, engulfed by an unending, suffocating night. They stumbled forward blindly, every small sound amplified their footsteps, a jarring heartbeat in the oppressive silence that in the distance, a low growl rolled through the darkness, an ominous sound that sent a fresh wave of fear coursing through Sarah. Did you hear that? She murmured, gripping her children with newfound urgency. It sounds like something's here, Jamie said, his voice barely above a whisper. A flicker of movement to the left caught her eye. Stay behind me. She commanded, instinctively pushing Jamie and Lily closer. Her heartbeat echoed like a prisoner's countdown. Each second ticked away, drawing nearer to an impending danger. Then, a figure emerged from the shadows, a tall, hunched silhouette with jagged edges that melted into the dark tendrils that surrounded them. Sarah's throat tightened. She had seen this shape before, lurking just beyond the edge of her nightmares. No, not now, she whispered, panic clawing at her chest. It's him. Jamie gasped, and in that moment, the room shifted, the air thickening as dread swelled in her gut. The man stood frozen, grinning a wicked smile that seemed to stretch unnaturally wide. What's owed must be paid, he rasped, voice slithering through the air like smoke. No. Sarah shouted, stepping back instinctively. You don't have to do this. The shadows swirled around them, gripping them tighter, their presence suffocating and unyielding. They always think they can bargain, the man taunted, lacing his fingers together, darkened eyes flashing with cruel glee. Let us go. Sarah cried, panic igniting her defiance against the hopelessness that threatened to drown her. But the laughter that followed was like shards of glass, sharp and cruel, echoing in her ears as the figure drifted closer, blocking their path to freedom. What do you have of worth? He sneered, leaning in, breath foul and suffocating. You've nothing left to give. Only what remains can fill the void. She stumbled back, nearly losing her footing as horror engulfed her. In that seemingly infinite moment, the shadows surged, crashing against Sarah, and she felt the weight of her past thrumming violently through her heart. What can we do? Lily whimpered, eyes wide, tears spilling down her cheeks. Hold on tight. Sarah commanded, steeling herself against the overwhelming dread. She glanced back at Jamie, desire to protect coiling tighter within her. We will find a way together. As fear clawed its way up her throat, she took a step forward, determined. Light! She yelled, her own voice cutting through the darkness, a plea to embrace any vestiges of hope. We will find our own way out. Suddenly, the shadows crackled, the laughter faded, replaced by an angry whispering that swirled like an angry storm. Shadows recoiled, the grip on her tightening again as if the darkness itself was not ready to release them, but amid the chaos, Sarah felt a flicker of something. A chance. A glimmer. Could their love stronger than any shadow light their way? Just as she felt herself slipping, a piercing scream pierced the air, a war cry that shattered the suffocating veil of darkness gripping her. What was that? Was it the force of their love, or something far more sinister? With a jolt, Sarah turned to her children, ready to fight back against the inevitability that cotoned like a noose around their lives. Only one lingering question pulled at her heart, beating like a relentless drum: would the love that once held them together now become the weapon that would tear them apart? The darkness thickened, wrapping around them like a suffocating cloak. Sarah's heart raced, each beat a countdown to inevitable despair. She could still hear that scream, echoing away into the distance. It was a battle cry, but whose? The thought twisted her stomach. Did you hear that? Jamie whispered again, anxiety threading through his voice, as if he could sense the shadow's anticipation. Yes. She hissed, forcing a steely resolve. But we can't lose our focus. Stay close. We must keep moving. With tentative steps, they pressed deeper into the abyss, fear clawing at their heels. The man's taunting laughter still lingered, bouncing off the jagged edges of the nightmare they were trapped in. Where are we? Lily muttered, her voice almost swallowed by the encroaching darkness. I don't know. Sarah let the words hang heavy in the air, mingling with the fear. But whatever it is, we can't let it break us. Another growl reverberated, this time closer, vibrating through the ground towards them. The shadows shifted, like living entities, the darkness around them shifting to a rhythm, pulsating with an unsettling hunger. Mom! Jamie squeezed Sarah's arm, the grip of his tiny fingers a lifeline against the swirling chaos. What if it wants us? What if it needs us? Then we'll show it we're stronger. Sarah shouted, a spark of desperation igniting her words. She felt a surge of protective energy, channeled through her children, fueling her determination even in this oppressive nightmare. At once, the shadows surged forward, and the dark figure loomed age-old, his hollow eyes slashed through the dim light around them. You think you can fight your way out? He crooned, dripping with malice. Love is as fragile as your lives. It will not save you. What do you want? Sarah shouted, her voice trembling but fierce. What I want, he breathed, stepping closer until she could feel the chill radiating off him, is to witness you unravel. To watch as the love that binds you rots and decays. Then you will wait a long time. Sarah shouted back, heart pounding, burning with defiance. Behind her, she felt Jamie and Lily's unfaltering presence, a robust shield against the man's torment. With a movement that felt like sheer instinct, she turned once more towards the large mass of shadow, lifting her chin defiantly. You don't know the bond we share. You underestimate us. The figure paused, eyes narrowing, the absent echoes of laughter silenced. The shadows seemed to falter, losing some of their chaotic energy in an instant. Perhaps you're right, he sneered, masking an uneasy tremor with a false layer of calm. But your time is running out. Sarah felt the pulse of fear hit her like a cold splash of water. A dark flood of uncertainty cascaded around her, pressing in while giving no air to breathe. Now, she said, urgency slipping from her voice as she grabbed Jamie and Lily's hands, pulling them taut. We need to move now. We have each other. But the shadows twisted violently, a scream of rage erupting among them. Their fingers slipped through the dark as she stamped forward. Run! Sarah's voice cracked, urgency igniting into panic as she yanked her children into an all-out sprint, the chaos chasing, closing in. Yet every step was weighed down by the dread that entangled their hearts. The walls around them pressed in, silhouettes of terror unfolding in the corners of her vision. They were trying to flee a fate more than just physical. Suddenly, the ground beneath her feet shifted, buckling as a gaping void appeared, revealing an abyss lined with red, swirling eyes. The depths opened promisingly, echoing promises of safety yet whispering malevolence that left her reeling. "Mom!" Lily's cry pierced through the chaos. But as they stood frozen, the shadows enveloped them, murmuring dark secrets only she could hear. Would embracing this terror protect them? Or would it be the end of their fragile bravery? Haunted by the darkness closing in, Sarah clenched her fists, willing her heart to beat louder than the shadows' whispers, determined to find answers at any cost, even if it led them to something far worse. The ground trembled beneath them, a deep, groaning echo that resonated through Sarah's bones. The abyss gaped wide, and for a fleeting moment, it felt like the shadows hesitated. The blood-red eyes blinked slowly from within the darkness, as if waiting to see who would make the first move. "Mom, what's happening?" Jamie's voice trembled, a stark contrast to the chaos that surrounded them. I don't know." Panic laced Sarah's voice, but she couldn't show it. They were all she had, and she needed to be their anchor. "Keep moving." With an instinct born of desperation, she pulled them closer. But the shadows surged around them in angry waves, brushing against her skin like cold, clammy fingers. The figure loomed larger, drawing nearer, his lips spreading into a cruel grin that revealed teeth sharp and stained. In that moment of horror, Sarah felt a pulse in her chest that matched the darkness. Something sinister whispered to her from its depths, an invitation wrapped in deceit. "Join us, and become one with the shadow. You will never feel pain again. Only bliss." "No!" she shouted, defiance firing through her. "You will not take us." But the promise hung in the air, a seductive note that sent shivers down her spine. Brief images flickered through her mind, laughter around a warm fire, sunlight dappling through trees, her children safe and happy. Suddenly, a scream tore through the silence, raw and shrill. It wasn't just an echo, it felt like a cry of desperation, of someone trapped within the shadows. The echo of the man's laughter returned, now layered with cruel delight, mocking their plight. "Mom!" Lily whimpered, her grip tightening. "I can't take this anymore. Just hold on." Sarah moved forward, willing her legs to push past the suffocating dread. The shadows pressed tighter, their whispers growing into a cacophony of horrors, drowning out her thoughts. "What are we going to do?" "I can't see," Jamie cried, stumbling as the darkness shifted violently around them. "Keep your eyes on me. We're together, remember?" But the shadows weren't just surrounding them, they were reaching into Sarah's heart, whispering secrets that dug under her skin. The very essence of fear coiled around her being, feeding off the uncertainty, the raw terror visibly etched on her children's faces. "Strength comes from desperation," the figure hissed, laughter rolling like thunder. "You can't save anyone when you're already losing yourself." With a roar that resonated deep within her, Sarah tightened her fists. "You aren't stronger than our love. We can beat you." The raw power of her assertion shattered a moment of silence. The shadows recoiled beneath her conviction, a splintering gasp echoing as the weight of her resolve forced them backward. For a heartbeat, she felt the grip of despair loosen. But then, they surged again, slamming into her. Sarah fought to stand firm, but the darkness clawed and nipped at her sanity. Just when she thought they might escape, the ground shifted once more. An unholy screech erupted, sending vibrations through the air. The abyss yawned wider, revealing a landscape of torment, a twisted version of the world above them. "Look!" Lily pointed, and Sarah turned. Amidst the chaos, moments of familiarity danced at the edges of the shadows, pictures of their lives before this nightmare, serene and untroubled, flickering like faulty light bulbs. Is this what you want? The figure taunted, his eyes glittering with malice. You seek to hold on but know you'll let go. Come back to the darkness. It can offer you more than you know. As Sarah lost herself in the chaos of visions, an insidious thought erupted within her. What if giving in was easier, safer? What if there was no way out? Mom! Jamie's cry broke through her trance. His voice sparked something deep inside her. No! She roared, shaking off the seducing whispers. We fight. Together. With one last effort, she turned to run, pulling her children behind her. But the abyss threatened to swallow them whole, the shadows laughing and clawing as they chased. They barreled forward, clutching onto each other, hearts racing in sync. In the insanity, fear ballooned, but a fleeting sense of hope flickered. Then, just as they thought they might break free, sharp claws snared around Sarah's ankle, pulling her down into the abyss. She screamed, adrenaline surging as her body was yanked back. Mom! The panic in Jamie's voice shattered through the darkness. Terror gripped her heart as she felt the shadows gnawing at her will. As they pulled her deeper, she screamed one last time, fight! Don't let it take us. The darkness roared with laughter, but in that moment, a shattering sense of clarity struck Sarah. There was only one way to escape. In the depths of despair, what would they be willing to sacrifice to find safety? Would they stand as one or be torn apart forever? The figure's malicious grin widened, and Sarah knew one truth above all: the real test was just beginning. The shadows clawed at Sarah's ankle, dragging her down into the void, an all-consuming darkness that felt alive, pulsating with a hunger that echoed in her bones. Panic ripped through her, and she clawed at the ground beneath her, fingers scrambling against the rough earth. No! Please! Jamie and Lily stood frozen, terror painted across their faces. Mom! Jamie yelled. A desperate cry that pierced through the swirling darkness, but there was nothing he could do. The abyss was stronger, pulling Sarah further into its embrace. Hold on to each other. She could barely shout, feeling her heart race. I love you. With that, she felt herself slipping, a doll errantly tossed into an unseen storm. She screamed as her leg vanished altogether, her voice swallowed by the darkness. Then, like a lighthouse piercing through a stormy night, a thought illuminated her mind: she had to fight. But as she slipped deeper, it wasn't just her body that was being endangered. Images flooded her mind, sinister flashes of betrayal and failure. Each specter whispered cruel doubts, tearing at the edges of her resolve. Your love is a weakness, Sarah, the figure taunted, now looming large above her children, his breath foul like decay. Let it go. Join me, and you will have more than you ever dreamed. Sarah struggled, teeth gritted, her limbs flailing against the relentless hold. I want to leave them. And then she thought of Lily, of Jamie. They were her lifeline. Hadn't they always held her together, just as they were holding on to each other now, flickering courage against desolation? Fight, Sarah. She whispered to herself, summoning a fleeting warmth of determination. With all the might she could muster, she jerked her body upward, feeling the shadows waver, their grip loosening slightly. In that brief moment of respite, she screamed, stand strong. I'm coming back. You can't have us. The laughter echoed, mocking her but also faltering. The shadows shivered around her, hesitant for the first time. There was a whisper of hope, a glimmer of something real. She focused all her energy on the pull of her heart, the love for her children becoming a tangible force. Suddenly, she felt their hands grasping hers. Jamie's fingers wrapped around her wrist, pulling her back, and she felt Lily's smaller hand clutching her tightly. Mom, we're here. We want to let go. With a mighty effort, Sarah fought against the abyss, her love manifesting as a shield against the darkness. The shadows screamed, their voices merging into a horrific symphony of anguish, but Sarah's resolve was stronger, fueled by the bond that tied them together. Now! She cried, tugging with all her strength. Hold on! In a blinding rush, they were yanked upwards, the abyss howling in rage around them. The connection was surreal, an electric charge coursing through them, lifting them, letting light pierce through the inky blackness, then, with a shattering crack, the ground erupted beneath them, and they tumbled out of the maw of the abyss, landing hard on the chilled earth. Gasping, they looked at each other, relief mingling with dread. But something was wrong. The air felt different, charged with unspeakable tension. Unfurling before them was not the forest they had known. Where are we? Lily's voice tremored, scanning their surroundings. That it was a twisted mirror of their world, fragmented trees twisting in unnatural shapes, their branches clawing at the sky like skeletal fingers. And a low, guttural moan rolled through the air like a warning bell. Even as they caught their breath, the shadows danced behind the trees, their grotesque faces peering out, waiting, watching. An awful sense of foreboding slithered back into Sarah's heart. Don't look back, she urged, adrenaline flooding her veins. They had to find a way back home, but the path ahead was shrouded in even deeper darkness than before. Do you hear that? Jamie asked, eyes wide as he glanced back at the trees. A voice came from behind the twisted trunks, soft yet sinister, luring like honey. You can't escape. You took what's ours. And now you will pay. Sarah's breath hitched in her throat. There was no escaping the truth. They may have escaped the abyss, but the horrors of the shadows were just beginning. What had they unknowingly unleashed? They could feel it, creeping closer, the weight of trembling fear heavy in the air. Run! Sarah shouted, leading her children forward as the shadows flowed like liquid smoke behind them. But as heartbeats raced and footsteps echoed, a darkness loomed ahead, an ominous figure emerging from the shadows, arms outstretched. You can't run. You'll never leave. With terror coiling around their throats, they knew, the fight was far from over. What remained to be seen was the price they would pay. The cold air wrapped around Sarah as the figure stepped into the dim light, revealing itself as the man from the hospital, now more monstrous in form, eyes glinting with malicious delight. You thought you could escape me? He taunted, his voice a low, hungry growl. The children's eyes widened in terror. Stay close, Sarah shouted, pulling Jamie and Lily to her side. They had been through so much already, and she could feel the weight of their fear. But they had to keep moving. The twisted landscape was alive and pulsating, trees bending as if drunk with shadows, their gnarled branches reaching for them like skeletal hands. A chilling wind swept through the air, carrying whispers of forgotten souls, still trapped in a cycle of despair. Close your eyes, Sarah urged, her heart pounding in her chest. Trust me. She could feel the shadows creeping closer, looming behind them like a never-ending nightmare. As they sprinted, the foul laughter echoed through the branches, mocking their every step. You think you can outrun your past? The man sneered, his voice wrapping around them, heavy and resolute. You belong to this darkness now. No. Sarah yelled, defiance surging through her veins. We are not defined by fear. With each stride, she fueled herself with the love she had for her children. Every heartbeat reminded her of the warmth and laughter before this nightmare, igniting her will to escape. They ran blindly, dodging trees that twisted and snapped like fingers reaching out for them. With every step, the man's laughter turned from playful mockery to something deeper, filled with wrath that resonated in the air. You cannot escape. You are forever entwined in this web. Suddenly, they stumbled into a clearing, a surreal patch where the shadows thinned. Light pierced through the air, but it flickered like a candle caught in a breeze. Sarah seized the opportunity. This way, she urged as they dashed toward the light, hoping it would lead them home. But the shadows writhed behind them, pulsating with dissatisfaction. They felt it in the air, a suffocating presence that sought to ensnare them once more. The whispers became shouts, calling out, "Join us! Join us! Don't listen! Focus on my voice!" Sarah shouted, desperately trying to guide her children. They ran together, hands clenched tight against the terror that sought to consume them. As they reached the center of the clearing, Sarah realized it wasn't just a refuge, it was a focal point of power, a threshold balancing between their world and the abyss. The man materialized at the edge, growing larger, his fingers curling as the darkness clawed around him. "You think you can operate in the light and leave the darkness behind?" His voice trembled with rage, a promise that made the ground quake. A flicker of resolve ignited within Sarah. "We've faced you before," she screamed. "You're nothing but shadows trailing behind us. You don't own us." She pulled Jamie and Lily close, digging deep into the well of her strength. She knew they had endured unspeakable horrors, but love filled her heart, illuminating the shadows that clung desperately to them. With that power, she mustered her voice, calling out to the souls echoing in the darkness. "You don't have to stay bound to this nightmare. We can set you free." The shadows quivered, gasping at the weight of her words. For just an instant, they hesitated. "Now!" Sarah shouted, channeling every ounce of strength into a push, urging Jamie and Lily forward into the light, where they could break free from the chaos that clawed at their heels. As they crossed the threshold, the shadows surged forward, a wave of fury, but it was too late. A radiant warmth exploded around them, consuming the darkness in blinding light. Sarah, Jamie, and Lily collapsed in the clearing, hearts racing, breathless. They had escaped, but a shadow lingered, just outside the boundary, howling with outrage. "You cannot outrun your past," it bellowed, before flickering back into the void. Trembling but relieved, Sarah held her children close. "We did it," she whispered, wonder mixing with disbelief. As they lay there in the aftermath of their escape, Sarah felt the warmth of the light embrace them, knitting together the tattered pieces of their hearts. "We'll always remember," she murmured, knowing that the shadows would never be far behind, but they would never let fear consume them again. "Mom," Lily whispered, looking up at her. "We'll be okay," Sarah said, determination heavy in the air. Together. As they moved forward, each step marked by hope rather than terror, they turned back one last time, the hollow laughter of the man fading into the silence, a reminder of what they had evaded. They were no longer just survivors of darkness, they were now beacons of resilience, illuminated by the strength of their love, and then they walked into the light, leaving shadows behind. You need to subscribe now to catch the next exclusive story. Smash that like button now so the algorithm knows you want more thrilling tales. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to feel the excitement of this conclusion.